There's no need to wait on your service member to share secondhand information anymore. Welcome to Holding Down the Fort, a podcast show where we put military spouses and children's needs front and center so that they can make informed decisions together as a family. Because let's face it, we know who's really holding down the fort. Let's get started. All right. Hi, everyone. Jen Amos here with Holding Down the Fort podcast. And I am super excited because today I get to interview the owner of Vida, Chic Weddings and Events, Chavah Grant. Chavah, welcome to the show.
Aloha, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. This is so fun.
Yes. Yeah. I feel like one thing I enjoy about doing these interviews is I'm essentially just talking to someone over the phone. It just so happens that we're recording it for other people to listen to.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So, Chavah, why don't we start with you sharing how you heard about the podcast and why were you interested in jumping on with us?
Oh, goodness. So I am like a super huge LinkedIn fan. I know a lot of people are starting to jump on that bandwagon now, but I saw you guys on LinkedIn, loved what you were doing. I'm super hardcore about advocating for the military spouse community. Saw all the talk that was going on around you guys and what you're doing and stuff. And so we ended up connecting, and I'm super happy about it. I love to be around people and to work with people that are just as hardcore about the military spouse and the veteran world as I am. So yeah.
I love that. I feel like I'm fairly new in being hardcore. I feel like I'm kind of getting there because, so a little background on me and for anyone that's listening for the first time, I'm a Gold Star daughter and I lost my dad when I was 10 years old. And then about 2 decades later, that's when I started to get involved in the community again, thanks to my husband. So I feel like I'm kind of recalling things and picking up remnants of the past and, trying to put the puzzle pieces together. But the more I get involved in the community, the more excited and just grateful, to see the community that I grew up with, and now, and it hasn't left. Obviously, I mean, the military is going to be here for quite a long time. Let's just face it. For me, I live vicariously through people such as yourself, who's very gung ho for the community, and especially since you're in it. So why, of course, you're going to be gung ho about it because you're living it.
Right. And I'm also a military brat. My dad was in the military. He was in the Army. So I grew up, moving around and PCSing every couple of years and all that fun stuff. And then grew up, had 10 years of a gap, my adult life, and then ended up marrying someone in the Air Force. So most of my life has been affiliated with the military in some way. There was a small gap there, but other than that, I jumped right back in it as a spouse. So I'm definitely in it for the long haul.
Yeah, it's kind of like once you're in it, it's hard to get out of it. And even once you do get back into it, like myself, it's like I love it. One thing I was sharing with my husband and his colleagues when I first started working with them is just how much I admire their teamwork and how working together is just it's just a known thing where, prior to getting involved, I was an independent business owner and I was very much just kind of doing everything myself, and so I didn't really trust other people to like take over some things certain times. So it's just really cool to see that's their default, to trust one another and depend on one another. And so, I can't get enough of it. I mean, sometimes, don't get me wrong, sometimes it annoys me to see how much they care about each other and how involved they are with each other's lives. But overall, it's like, I love it. At the end of the day, I have people that are checking in with me and I can count on, and I love it.
Yeah. It's definitely not another group like it. That is for sure.
Yes, absolutely. So, all right, Chavah. Well, why don't you, for anyone that is learning about you for the first time, why don't you tell them what a typical day looks like for you? What keeps you busy nowadays? What keeps you excited? I want to hear all about it.
Oh my goodness. So what's really funny about what I do? So I'm, in weddings and events and all that fun stuff. But what's funny about a typical day is there is no typical day. It's always different. Every day, working with different personalities and different people. Every day always, with that comes newness.
Yes.
Every single day. yeah, and I thrive off of that. I'm definitely a person that I worked an office job for a very small portion of my beginning of my 20s, and it was so difficult for me. I just definitely was not cut out for that. Every day it was the same thing. I'd come in, I'd sit down, open emails, stare at the screen for about 30 minutes, aimlessly, like, oh, what do I start on? And after about 6 months, I was like, this really is not for me. And so that is what I enjoy about this job so much, is that I get up every day and it's always something new. We're always creating something new for people. We're always talking to different people every day. And really the greatest part about that is, well, we get to plan the best day of someone's life, right? Like that is the best moment of their life. This is probably one of the only times that they're going to see that group of people all together at one time. So it's really fun, and it can be a little bit stressful, but what job isn't, right? So there is that element of it, but it's pretty amazing. So yeah, so I love it.
I love that. And to me, so I'm an introvert, and I feel like I get all this extrovert energy just from hearing you talk. And
Aww.
I'm kind of
that.
Yeah, I'm the kind of person that likes to be in front of a computer, but obviously when I want to socialize, I like to socialize on my own terms. And so
right. My husband's like that. Exactly him.
I think it's very common for spouses. Like, there's always the one that's a hardcore extrovert and one that's a hardcore introvert. I think they tend to complement each other. And I think
definitely.
Yeah. And so, and I love your take on events, because I never really looked at it that way, where when it comes to events, like, that's a rare time for those group of people to really come together and celebrate something. So to me, it sounds like you tend to get a high through this experience, because these people are excited to see each other.
I do. Awesome. I definitely do. It's funny because I've done it for years, but I still cry at almost every wedding.
I love it.
Between the mother-son dances, because I now have a son. I have an 18-month-old. So between that, or when they write their own vows, it's just new every time. And it's also even helpful for my relationship, because it reminds me every weekend, that newness of their relationship and how fresh it is and how excited they are to be together and spend their life together. And it's just a constant reminder of that. So it's been great for our marriage also.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's awesome. I actually can't imagine doing anything better than what I do. I think about it sometimes and I'm like, no. I absolutely love it.
I love that you love to do that. We need people like you who like to put together events, and it's also, and like you said, events are also a reminder to appreciate what you have, and I can feel that from everything that you're saying.
Yeah.
So with Holding Down the Fort, the purpose of this podcast, which, by the way, you're our first person that we're interviewing to talk about why this podcast is in existence. So thank you for being the first, by the way.
Oh, how exciting. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, you are officially episode 4, but the first 3 episodes is really the prequel. And so if people want to learn more about like why we started it and stuff, but this is really the first episode. Right. Yeah. So this is really
so cool.
Yeah. Yay. Yeah, you.
If I would have known, I would totally have popped a bottle of champagne on air. I feel like I still should.
Yeah, it's great. Like I said, this is new, and the reason why we're doing this is because we have found that a lot of military families and spouses, for that matter, tend to get secondhand information from their service member and from the military in general. And so we wanted to be able to provide educational topics and resources for military families and spouses, so that they can continue to hold down the fort to the best of their ability and making the best informed decisions. So for today, the educational topic that you're going to share with us is how to build a business that thrives even through PCS. And so I'd like for you to start explaining why you think this is so important. And because for me, if I were still in the military, I wouldn't know the first thing to build a business and thrive through PCS. So why don't we go ahead and start with that? Do you feel like there is a lack of information for military spouses or families to build a business and have it thrive even through PCS?
Yes, I definitely think that there's a lack of resources when it comes to military spouses building their own careers and their own businesses independently. We've been married now for about 5 years, and when I first jumped into the military spouse community, that's what I was searching for. I was searching everywhere for people, for resources, for just anything, any sort of information. I was looking at YouTube, just anything that would give me some sort of idea of what I would need to do, what I'd need to look forward to, what it would take to do it, to be able to move my business around. And I really couldn't find much of anything. I found some communities, but there really wasn't much in terms of resources and one-on-one and things like that. What I found a lot of was resources for military spouses being able to find employment with different companies like Google and Amazon and things like that. But I didn't find anything for someone trying to do their own thing and to work PCSing into their own thing. So I talked to a couple of other ladies, and we basically talked about our own individual, because we were all doing different things, needs, and what we actually needed to be able to do stuff like that. And so I started to jot things down to kind of create my own kind of information / resource arsenal, because I realized that it wasn't out there already. Yeah, I definitely think there's a lack. And there are a lot of resources that are popping up now. Like I know you guys, and there's some other companies and groups that are starting to realize that with PCSing, even if you were to get a job through, these companies that are joining forces with military spouses, it's definitely not as lucrative, and you can't really build on it like you can if you were to do your own thing independently. And so I think that all of these very brilliant spouses, people have master's degrees and PhDs and things like that, and they're, restarting even with these other companies, which is great. I love the initiatives that we have already in place for things, with these companies and things like that. But you really, in essence, are starting over every time, because it's not just about employment, it's about building. If your spouse is in the military for 15 years and you're traveling with him for 15 years, restarting every 2 to 3 years, even though it's employment, it's definitely not a career. You're not building anything. And so that's what I and a couple of other communities have really tried to do, is give resources for people that want to build something and that are interested in doing something on their own.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's so awesome. And I do think it's amazing too that there's beginning to be more resources out there for military spouses to learn how to build a business. And also there are opportunities out there and resources for those who want to work a remote job, not just a freelance work, but actually getting employed. And so I think it's great to see that there's more awareness of it. I know the Blue Star Families comes out with a survey every year, just sharing how many military spouses are extremely underemployed, even though they're overly educated. And
right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so I think the more we can talk about this, the more resources will be out there. And, the purpose of this podcast is really to create awareness of what's already out there. I'm glad to have you on. And you did mention that you were able to make your own list of things that have worked for you. So why don't we dive into that? If people were interested in building a business and have it thrive, even through PCS, how would they be able to do that?
Yeah, a couple of really important things that I ended up doing early on was focusing really heavily, especially in the beginning, on branding, because branding is what's going to be able to pull you through all of your PCSs, because it makes your company or your entity or whatever it is that you're trying to do bigger than yourself, right? And it makes it a lot easier to carry it through to different locations and through PCSs and through all these moves and, even going to different countries. So making sure that whatever you decide to do, that you are focusing even before your PCS on making sure that you have a strong brand and that you're working on branding, even if it's personal branding for yourself, that is going to be a key to be able to pull your company through. I have lots of friends that do not put emphasis on that. Mm-hmm. And it definitely is a struggle when they try to pick up and move or try to expand into different territories, because you need that awareness, right? Mm-hmm. So I'd say the first thing is to focus on your brand, whether or not that's a logo, whether or not that's a color scheme or, font text, keeping that consistent through all your social media feeds and all, just keeping the core of what you're doing, or when all, having that at the forefront of everything when you do things is really important, because you want that recognition from people that'll be able to pull you through. I think a lot of people don't talk about branding when it comes, because they think, oh, I'm a small business, I'm not a brand, so why would I focus on branding? But it's really important, and it's important, and it's really so easy. It's not one of those big things that you need a lot of money for. There are all sorts of resources like Fiverr and Freelancer and all sorts of resources where you can get a really inexpensive, if you're not a creative yourself, you can do it very inexpensively. So I know that's not the one that people tend to hear the most, but that, I will say, that is probably a really major key in what helped me expand, because I actually didn't, although I did move here, I expanded when I left Texas, because I started in Texas and then we ended up in Hawaii. I didn't actually shut down in Texas. We just expanded instead of shutting down shop and moving here. So I still have things that are going on in Texas. I still have my business there, and then now I have my business in Hawaii, and we're looking at having a remote office in Paris now as well. So that all has to do with, keeping that core, that brand intact. So I would say that's probably the most important piece. And then also the second piece that's really big, and this is one that people probably already know, but keeping your social media consistent and making sure that you have social media on all platforms. That has been really helpful as well, because our Instagram now is what brings in 54% of our clientele, which is amazing.
Wow,
our website
incredible.
it's stronger than our website. So just, having that brand awareness and, people just kind of keeping up with what we're doing on a very consistent basis has been really helpful for us as well. And that has also, that moves with you, right? Like if you are not in Texas, it doesn't matter. If you're not in Hawaii, it doesn't matter, because that you can keep that up wherever you are. So that has been a really strong catalyst as well.
I think that's incredible. And I completely agree with you with the personal branding thing, because for myself, for example, with my husband and in our business, his mission is mainly focused on veterans and those that are transitioning, mainly because, he's a veteran and he's been through it himself. However, I am not a veteran in any way. I was a military brat, became Gold Star daughter, and now veteran spouse. And I had to figure out a way to personally brand myself to fit into our overall mission, because otherwise I felt like I was kind of being robotic when I was working. I didn't want to be in the forefront when talking to people about what we did. But now for me, because we created Holding Down the Fort, it makes it so much easier for me to connect with people, because the thing with personal branding is it's not just marketing, it's knowing what you're really passionate about and who you really want to serve. You really have to dive deep, so that you could really connect with people. And when you are in business, people can tell if you're just looking at them as dollar signs. They can tell. They call that, I've heard it was called commission breath. I've heard that that phrase.
I love
before.
that. That's so accurate.
Exactly. But if they know where your heart is and what you stand for and who specifically you're targeting, there's something about that draws people to you, and they know that you're really there to serve them, not just trying to make a paycheck or something. So I highly, highly agree with you with the personal branding. I encourage everyone who is going to be in business or is already in business, even if you are representing another company, I recommend that you find a way to personally brand yourself away from the company. It just so happens that you offer those services, because things might change. You might end up switching companies, or you might end up, selling other products, but your personal brand is your personal brand. Like no company can take that away from you. So I love, like, I feel like that's like all the advice we need for today. I completely agree with you on that. And then also with social media, I think it's extremely beneficial, especially for the military community, because we're constantly moving and there's just so many things that's going on. But social media has really become our virtual home for a lot of us.
Yes.
And so if you're updating on social media, it's kind of like just letting people know, hey, my house is open, come on in, or, oh, hey, my store is open, come on in. And so it's just like, I completely agree with both both of those. So I appreciate you really sharing those two things. So when you do PCS, do you have a normal routine in your business on essentially how to start over?
Oh, sure. So the first thing I do is there's a registration called the Foreign Business Registration.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I know that I'm going to be doing something somewhere else or working on having military spouses kind of independently do events under my umbrella. So I have all the back end things, the contracts and the invoicing, all that fun stuff already automated out. So they would just come in and learn the front end portion, right? So to be able to do that, it's really simple. I mean, it seems really difficult, but it's really just getting that foreign business registration and registering in a different place. So you can still keep all of your same business information, your EIN, all of that fun stuff. It's just saying you're going to be doing it in another place as well. That's not your home base. So that's a really important, I don't think people really realize what it is. They know that there's something they need to do, but it's called a foreign business registration license. And that's what you do whenever you're going to do it in a different place or going to shift, but want to keep your headquarters in your main home base, your main location. So that's something I do every time I'm looking at doing something in a different location or expanding or PCSing. I make sure that we get that taken care of first, and then it's easy to transition at that point.
That's awesome. I didn't even know that existed. So for anyone that's listening and you have a business and you're not licensed, get on it. Yeah.
They'll look at you a lot different when you have those things in place, because I know a lot of times people think that, as a military spouse, they have a little, I'm air quoting right now, they have this little business or this little craft thing, or no one really takes it seriously. So having those things in place and being able to walk in and say, okay, I have this, and this, and then we're ready to roll, definitely gives a little bit more respect to whatever it is that you are trying to accomplish. Because that's what we need, right? We need that oomph behind us so that people take us seriously, because that can definitely take the wind out of your sails if you feel like you're walking into something and you're not really sure, right? You're not really sure how you're supposed to do it or what you need or any of that fun stuff. So having those things already in place prior to gives you that encouragement that you need to be able to walk in somewhere and say, okay, I'm ready to do this. Let's go.
Yeah. I love that. It definitely creates much more credibility, and I think even for military spouses, it gives them that confidence that like I'm a legit business and I'm not joking around. So
right.
Well, Chavah, I feel like you had provided so much valuable information today. Thank you so much for your time. Do you have any closing thoughts before we wrap up?
No, this has been super exciting. I'm very excited to be able to talk to everyone and kind of get a little bit of information out there, a little tactical information. I'll just leave you guys with my social information. I mean, that is how everyone is communicating nowadays. My company is Vida Chic, VIDACHIC. So you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, all Vida Chic events. And then, of course, I'm Chavah Grant on LinkedIn. So, I'd love to talk to whoever. If anyone needs advice or help, support, information, I am here for you. So just reach out.
Yes, and if you did not catch that, we will have all of her information in the show notes. So you can just jump on there and copy and paste and find her, find Chavah Grant on social media. So, well, thank you so much. I feel like I learned a lot as well. And for all of our listeners, if you feel like you have something to share or you were inspired by this episode, we'd love to hear from you. Just visit our show notes. There's actually a way where you can leave a voice message or you can email us. And who knows, maybe we'll have Chavah Grant back on the show.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, Chavah. Take care. Talk soon.
All right. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Holding Down the Fort podcast show. To leave us a message, please visit our show notes to learn how, or you can email us at holdingdownthefortpodcast@gmail.com. Until next time.